Namaskar and welcome to the third episode of the podcast. Uh, at the outset, I just wanted to thank you, Harsh, for helping me with this entire process. And I don't think I could have had my own channel without your support. So thank you so much. And now to continue with our objective of inspiring our budding lawyers to strive for excellence and be more socially aware and responsible citizens, we have Mr. Shailesh Gandhi join us for the podcast today. Sir is interestingly not a lawyer, but a distinguished alumnus awardee of IIT Bombay. His journey from being a first generation entrepreneur to an RTI activist to the Central Information Commissioner of this country is truly, truly inspiring. Till date, Sir continues to work on for the cause of good governance, and he's very vocal about issues that affect the common man, such as RTI, timely justice delivery, as well as virtual courts. Welcome to the podcast, sir.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you, sir. Now, the first question is a very obvious one, which is you completed your graduation from IIT Bombay, you started your own company, but you sold that company to join the National RTI movement. I'm very curious to know what was your motivation and thought process like to take this decision.
When I was in the college, I was fairly active student leader, and I used to do a lot of debating and so on, organizing. About 20 years back from now, at an IIT alumni function, one faculty member asked me, he said, Shailesh, when you were in IIT, you were very critical about society and how things are wrong with society and so on. What do you think now? The first reaction was to say things are not okay. Things are wrong, there's corruption and so on and so forth. But then another thought flashed in my mind. When I was 20 and was saying things are not okay with society, it was implied that we'll do better. When I was answering this question, I was around 50. I was society, and things were not better. So I told him as much, and then thought process started that I need to do something. I mean, instead of just saying things are not okay. I discussed with my wife, Bharti, who was very supportive, and I decided to sell the business because I couldn't see myself doing the business and this together. I used to employ 500 people. So I sold the business to the Danis of Asian Paints, and the business continues right now. It has grown, in fact. But I therefore decided I had not heard of right to information, but I just felt I need to do something for society. And 2003, by a stroke of luck, Maharashtra got its RTI Act, and I heard about it and started on this journey and realized that this is one of our best tools for making and converting our defective elective democracy into a truly participatory democracy.
That's
and I must acknowledge my wife was very supportive and has been supportive all through, my wife Bharti, because without that, it would have been a difficult journey to undertake.
Amazing, sir. You're also the only RTI activist to have been appointed as the Central Information Commissioner. So, were there any specific circumstances that led to your appointment as the CIC?
These positions were, even now, are usually given as a consequence of political patronage or political networking or bureaucratic networking. That's how these positions really are given. Human Rights Commission, Children's Commission, Women's Commission, Lok Ayukt, all these positions, police complaints authorities are given like this. This is sinecure for good work done. I knew nobody. But I would like to describe the process or the lack of process in my own selection, and this is the common story. In August 2000, when the RTI Act was being drafted, a lot of us were involved in the drafting and in the movement. We had been saying that there should be a transparent process of selection of information commissioners, and that was not happening. Nobody was listening to us. In August 2008, in the first week, Arvind Kejriwal came to learn that the government had selected 4 names for the next selection as Central Information Commissioners. And these names were three other names who became commissioners with me, and the fourth name was of Mr. R.V. Shikumar. So he said, why don't we make a suggestion saying we'll offer four names from civil society, and why not a kind of argument saying tumhari safedi hamari safedi se better kaise? Why not our names? So he got a panel of four together, myself and three other people, and we got some prominent citizens to write to the Prime Minister, DOPT Minister, then Prithviraj Chavan, and Mr. L.K. Advani, Leader of Opposition. These letters went out. I didn't expect anything to happen. I thought it was more posturing, trying to make a point, as I would put it like that. What happened was very funny. The evening before the meeting, on August 20th, if I recall correctly, the list was sent to Mr. Advani. I'm told in these selections, there's some bargaining that goes on between the government and the opposition. This particular time, the opposition had offered no name. So Prithviraj Chavan sent this list of four names that they had selected to Mr. Advani in the evening, saying tomorrow we'll sign off on these names. When Mr. Advani saw R.V. Shikumar's name, he got angry. R.V. Shikumar was DG of Gujarat at the time of Godhra riots and had taken a clear position opposite Mr. Modi. He had held Mr. Modi responsible for the riots. So Mr. Advani got very angry. He said, you want to make Modi look small? I will not agree to R.V. Shikumar. And very casually, he was actually wanting to block R.V. Shikumar's name. He said, why not one of these civil society names? These four names have been suggested to us. Why not pick one of them? He didn't know any one of us. This message was taken back to Prithviraj Chavan. The next day's meeting was cancelled. Out of these four names, I'm not very sure whether Mr. Chavan checked the other three names or not. In my case, I do know he called up somebody who was in the software business in Mumbai to ask, ye Shailesh Gandhi kaisa aadmi hai? He had also never met me, but he had read about some of the work that I did in RTI in Mumbai, and he said, nahi, acha aadmi hai. So they said, bana do commissioner. That's how I became a central information commissioner. There is no process, and this is one of our weaknesses of our system. We must have proper criteria, proper selection processes for such positions. These are our checks and balances of democracy, and we made a joke out of them. And just to give just one example, Lokpal, millions of people came on the roads of India saying we want a Lokpal. We have a Lokpal now, and what do? Nobody knows. So we have great institutions who are not independent really, and who are not selected by any proper rational criteria. That's the story of my selection that I wanted to highlight.
Thank you, sir. So, pendency of cases across judicial fora in India is a grave issue for quite some time. And as the CIC, in fact, you disposed of a record number of 20,000 cases in less than 4 years. And most of these cases were, in fact, disposed in less than 90 days. So, in your experience, what do you think is the main cause of judicial pendency that we see today?
I would look at it first the other way around. What is the problem, or what is the issue? The issue is there is a dispute between two parties usually, and they approach the court, or in case of RTI, they approach the commission, and so on and so forth. Human beings have finite life. We are all mortal. Therefore, it has to be in a time-bound structure. The RTI Act, as an example, promises information in 30 days. And there is a penalty that can be imposed on a public servant if he does not give information in 30 days. And incidentally, he also does some other work apart from RTI work. As a commissioner, how does one have the moral authority to penalize somebody saying, you do other work apart from RTI, and because you failed on RTI, I will penalize you, but I will take my own time. I mean, I find it morally reprehensible. And I would say the same thing for the courts. If the courts do not realize that giving justice in a reasonable time is their problem, their job, then we don't find a solution. In the case of information commissioners, I had been observing the information commissioners. The average information commissioner disposal of a good commissioner in those days used to be about 2,000, 1,500 to 2,000 cases. Now also it's about the same. I had observed and realized that it's easily possible to do 5,000 to 6,000 cases a year. And I worked on a system and it was possible to do that. There was one hitch, however. The government did not provide adequate staff members to deal with so many cases. You also need a backup staff when you want to do much more. And in my opinion, since the information commissioner is the costliest person in the chain, he should be provided the required staff and it should be ensured that the best he can do, he should deliver. I therefore wrote to the Prime Minister saying I want more staff, but nobody was listening. And I spoke to my wife and we took a decision that I would hire people, call them interns, and I'd pay them from my salary. So that I did. I certainly concede. But it is possible, and let me point out one simple statistic for this. An average High Court judge, not that the High Court judges are doing very efficient work, but despite all of that, the average disposal per High Court judge in India is about 2,600 to 700 cases per year. The complexity of the cases before an information commission are far less than that of a High Court judge, average complexity. Some cases may be more or less, but the average complexity is certainly higher. Therefore, I would argue that if High Court judges can do 2,600, 700, information commissioners must do 6,000 to 8,000 cases a year. And if that happens, pendency no longer becomes the issue. And various government agencies do follow this rule. I still recall we had the Ganesh Chaturthi in Mumbai, which is a very day with lots of crowds everywhere. And the same day, an Indian cricket team was returning from some place having won the trophy, having won the series. So there was this and the Ganesh Chaturthi. And the police did not say, I can't do it. I won't do it. They delivered. Judicial systems also have to deliver, whether you are a judge or a policeman. I think you need to deliver and be sensitive to the fact that somebody is waiting in a queue. Merely doing justice to the person in front of you is not adequate. It's insufficient. The man waiting in the queue also deserves justice. And that is what is the problem. I think the judiciary does not believe it is its job to deliver justice in reasonable time.
So you are someone who leads by example. And as the CIC, in fact, you were very quick to adapt to new technologies and were in fact responsible for having the first paperless office in the commission. You have also been very vocal about virtual courts of late. Do you think virtual courts are here to stay, or is it just something that we are seeing during COVID?
The most logical thing is that they're here to stay. But the way the whole system is going just now, it appears they are not here to stay. I think there are very powerful legal lawyers associations who are fighting against allowing this to happen. And there's the same problem. Neither the judges nor the lawyers think it is their responsibility to deliver. It's so simple. A litigant does not have to go to court. He saves his time and money. A lawyer can also appear from anywhere. What they call the hybrid system is the right solution. I am unable to understand what is happening. And I am just going through and studying the draft report of the E-Committee of the Supreme Court on this matter. And I'm very disappointed. They do not recognize that it is something that has to be done tomorrow. Let me just give you one instance of this. Apart from time and time saving and space, e-filing has been around since long time. And the word being used normally is digitization, which means Bombay High Court, for example, you do an e-filing, you must submit your papers. The papers are scanned I can't believe a more wasteful system. And do you realize, and I think, I don't know whether anyone realizes, Indian courts, the amount of paper they use up, it leads to butchering of 300,000 trees every year. 3 lakh trees are butchered every year to satisfy the needs of the paper of the courts. For 2,000 trees, there was a big agitation in RA. The courts also interfered in that. And 300,000 trees a year, is it not sufficient to shake people up?
Right. Sir, my next
Incidentally,
question. Yes.
sorry, let me just add to that. 2,300 crores have been allocated by the committee or have been spent in the last few years. What's the outcome? If 300 crores out of this was spent for software, 2,000 crores would mean 10 lakh rupees per court. 10 lakh rupees per court is enough to give all the paraphernalia necessary. But it hasn't happened.
Right. Sir, as a part of the National RTI movement, you were responsible for drafting the RTI Act. Do you think that the effectiveness and its essence has changed over the years, especially in view of the recent amendment to the RTI Act?
It has nothing to do with the amendment. Let me be honest. The amendments have a very small impact. The RTI Act has been amended, A, by the irresponsible behavior of the information commissions, B, by gross misinterpretations of the law. We have one of the best laws in the world, but it's been grossly misinterpreted to the point where it's actually amending the law. The amendments by gross misinterpretation is far, far higher than the amendment that government or parliament has made to the law. These are diluting the law. They're not called amendments, but you interpret something the exact converse of what the law says and say, now this is the law. And that's what's happening, and that needs to change. And citizens need to defend their right to information. We need to realize that right to information is at par with freedom of speech and freedom to publish in Article 19(1)(a). Since independence, freedom to speak and freedom to publish have been increasing by and large over the trend. But RTI in 16 years is being constricted beyond what the law says, illegally and unconstitutionally. And unfortunately, there is not enough outcry. I wish there were.
So your name is now synonymous with right to information. I was keen to know if you had any specific role models in the field of RTI specifically, or good governance generally.
I don't really have icons in that sense. I'm a person who doesn't believe too much in icons, but there's one person in the right to information movement who I respect tremendously. That's Aruna Roy, who in a way, Aruna Roy and her team, Nikhil Dey, Aruna Roy and Shankar Singh. But I think I have my own way to go, and that's what I really follow.
So we come to the last question of the podcast now. And that is, how far are we from making our people realize that they are the true owners of the information, and, to borrow your words, the true badshahs and begums of the Indian democracy?
Fortunately, very far, very far. What I have realized over the period of years is most individuals, citizens, officials, those with power more so, are reluctant to be transparent themselves. They want others to be transparent. And that is why right now I think there is a slight decline in the way RTI is being effective. From my own rough reading, from 2005 to 2011, there was a much better performance of RTI. PIOs were giving information. They were scared that if they don't give information, they'll get penalized. With someone like me, they knew that in 3 months they would be before the commissioner and get a tongue lashing, even if not a penalty. That fear is gone. Commissions are taking 1 year to 3 years to give decisions, and quite often these are not good. Most commissioners, most, not all, have no predilection for transparency. So we are at a very peculiar, and I'm hoping we find the courage and the ability to fight back, to get active citizens to say, fight back in terms of ensuring that the act and the law is implemented properly in its true spirit and word. If we do that, RTI can lead us to a Swaraj that we talk of. In my opinion, we missed Swaraj on 15th August 1947. But this has the capability of transforming this defective elective democracy into a participatory democracy. But citizens have to do it. They can't keep blaming others. If citizens raise their voices in a democracy, the political class also listens to people's voices. Courts also listen to people's voices. And that people's voice is missing. And I hope someday it will get heard. Maybe old people like me are not going to be able to do this. Young people like you might do it. That's the hope.
So as long as there are people like you to guide us, I'm sure we will achieve the vision that you have. And again, to borrow your words, I think it's in the end of every email that you send that Mera Bharat Mahan nahi hai, par ye dosh mera hai. So thank you so much, for taking out time for the podcast, sir. And it was a pleasure to have you. Thank you so much.
Pleasure talking to you. Thank you. Thank you very much.